Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today is already starting weird with the professor showing us the Pokémon that I will be using. Aerodactyl is going to be the star of today's video and hopefully it will not be too hard. The typing is unfortunately not very good for Emerald, but I'm sure I'll manage something. Anyways, for the rules, I can only use my starter in combat. I can't use items from my bag in battle. I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. I'm not sure how strong Aerodactyl is in competitive, but at least I am happy that they gave it a Mega Evolution. Aerodactyl starts the game pretty decently. It has decent stats, especially the speed and the physical attack, and for the initial moveset I only have wing attack, which is not great because I do not have a lot of options, but at least it's a decently powerful stab move. The typing will also be great for now, since most of the random trainers use normal attacks at this point, and those are resisted by my rock typing. By the time we make it to the Team Aqua Grant in the forest, Aerodactyl learns agility, which is a way overkill move. My speed is already extremely high, so increasing it even further will not be useful. The first roadblock is going to come up at Roxanne. She has rock-type attacks, which are super effective, and so I lose once. While I was leveling, I also find a wild shiny Taillow, so that was lucky. Once I made it to level 20, I got back to Roxanne, and this time around things go much better for me. I am now able to two-shot her Geodudes, and so they can't do that much. And also, with the increased stats, I can take a few of the Nosepass Rock Tombs. Between a lucky flinch, a lucky miss, and a misplay from her part, I can get through the ace with a little bit of HP left. A crit helps me out against her last Geodude, and with that we have gained the first badge of the game. Next up, we have to do a couple other things around town, starting with the Pico side quest, where we have to rescue the Wingull from this Team Aqua Grant. Once again, Poochyena is not exactly a threat at this point, and so we can easily defeat it. Next, we have to do the Sylph CEO stuff, and then, as we are attempting to leave, we are stopped by our rival for an optional fight. This match against May is going to be a bit harder than our first one, but it should still be not that bad. Her Pokémons are still somewhat frail, and so I can defeat them in a few turns. Today, since I am part flying and I also have a stab attack, I decided to take on Brawly at the start of the game, and thanks to my super effective hits, the fight against him ended up being extremely easy too, even easier than Roxanne. After the second badge, we can resume our journey, and the next stop is going to be in Slateport. Here we have to deliver some engine parts, but we are stopped by a few Team Aqua Grants who want to steal them. Their Pokémons are very frail, and so my Aerodactyl can finish them off in one hit with wing attack. It does make contact, and so I take a little bit of damage from rough skin, but it's nothing to worry about. Once we have defeated them and listened to Archie for a little while, we can resume our training, because the next encounter might be somewhat problematic. May has now evolved her starter and improved her team. Overall, her team is much better against me, but fortunately her starter Marshtomp is a bit dumb and tries to use Mud Shot instead of Water Gun. Of course, that does not hit me since I am part flying. That typing is going to be a bit problematic for the next fight though. I did lose once against Wattson, but since things did not go that bad, I attempted it again. It's also worth mentioning that I already learned Ancient Power and I did not get a boost in the first attempt. In this attempt I get one. A bit late, but it's better late than never, especially because the Pokémon against whom I need it the most is Magneton. Things do not go exactly great against the Magnet. I get fully paralyzed a lot of times, and thanks to the potions he can heal up quite a bit. Eventually I can land enough attacks to bury the Magnet Pokémon, and with that the third badge is ours too. After a bit of exploration we reach the Meterfall Caves, where we find the two teams having a bit of a verbal fight, and we are also informed about Max's plan. Of course, we cannot let him go through with it, and so to try to stop him we challenge him to a fight. The match against Maxi is not exactly easy for us. His Mightyena has Intimidate, which is a problem since I am a physical attacker, and while Zubat and Camerupt are not that resistant to rock, things could have been much worse, if they were. Moving on, we can get down from the volcano and get to the next gym. Flannery uses fire types, and so here we should have the type advantage. For the fight against her, I just spammed Ancient Power a few times, hoping for a boost, and luckily I get one halfway through the match. Honestly, that was probably not needed. I can still resist her strongest attacks, and so I should be able to win anyway, but thanks to it, it was much faster. Since we defeated Brawly earlier today, we can skip straight to our dead. Much like with Winona, we resist his stab attacks, and so this fight should not be that dangerous. To be fair, his Pokémons do have dark moves, which are neutral against me, but they do not use them very often. Slacking is of course the biggest threat by far. I tried to use the usual strategy to attack him with a special move whenever he can move, so that I would not be countered, but that does not work for very long. He gets aware of that and uses Yawn on me. While I sleep, he spams Facade, dealing a considerable amount of damage to me. Eventually I ran out of Ancient Powers, but thanks to a lucky crit, I can use Secret Power 3 times in a row to defeat his strongest Pokémon. Now that we have defeated the 5th badge too, we are given the Surf HM that we can use to explore most of the region. Eventually we stumble upon the Weather Institute, where we find the Team Aqua Admiral Shelley holding some scientists hostages. Her team is not particularly strong, even though there is the usual annoyance of Mightyena. Once we have defeated her and rescued those guys, we can resume with our journey, only to be stopped a couple steps later by our rival. Once again, May's team at this point is not that bad against AERODACTYL. Unfortunately for her though, I got an Omni Boost from Ancient Power, and thanks to that, I was able to one-shot her starter Pokémon. Now that we are done with her too, we can go to the next gym after doing a little bit of stuff with Steven, and Winona is going to be the next challenge. Once again, we have the type advantage, and so this gym should not be that bad. She has a couple of threatening Pokémons, but since I got 2 Ancient Power boosts this time, the fight against her turned out to be very easy. Surprisingly, Skarmory was still able to last quite a bit, but eventually the Metal Bird fell too, and so did the rest of her team. Also, I made a mistake earlier and accidentally overwrote Wing Attack with Takedown, but I can fix that right now since I get the Fly HM. But before I remember to do so, I took on the optional fight against a rival in the next town. Even though this is the last encounter against her, her team is not particularly impressive. She only has a couple of decent Pokémons, and Slugma is still a bit weird to have at this point. Also, she still did not learn her lesson and tried to use a ground attack on me. Once we are done with that, we can go get the magma emblem from the Pokémon Tower, and thanks to this key item, we can enter the cave where Groudon is. After defeating a whole bunch of Team Aqua Grunts, we can make it to the bottom, where Maxie awakens the legendary with the wrong orb. After Groudon leaves, we have to challenge the Team Aqua leader. After Groudon leaves, we have to challenge the Team Magma leader. Of course, the most annoying part of this fight is going to be the Intimidate from my Tiena. Because of that, my attacks do not deal a lot of damage, but fortunately I get a crit against Camerupt. And also against Crobat, which could have been very annoying to deal with because I ran out of Ancient Power Ps. Anyway, once we are done with that, we can get to the Team Aqua base, where we have to sort of do the same, but here we find only one of their admirals. It was nice of the game to give me a boost to counteract the Intimidate from my Tiena, but that was really not needed in this encounter. After all of that, I had to grind for a little bit because the next fight is going to be quite the challenge. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. Tate and Liza usually are a problem because you are in a 2v1 situation, and even though this is of course the case today too, Claydol took a page from May's playbook and for whatever reason it spammed Earthquake over and over again, almost every turn. This sort of turned back the fight in a 1v1, since Claydol was literally doing nothing, at least for the first few turns, because eventually I think they ran out of Earthquakes or something like that, and Claydol switched back to Psychic. Also, I sort of made a mistake. I think I should have taught Steel Wing to AERODACTYL. That would have helped a lot with the Meteor Pokémons, but instead I had to struggle quite a bit to defeat them, because Ancient Power is not that powerful and I of course never got a boost. Anyway, enough complaining, I was still able to defeat them in the first attempt, and so I should be happy about that. Next up, we have the double fight with Steven against the leadership of Team Magma. The fight against Maxie and the other Grunt is not particularly impressive as usual. Their Pokémons are not that threatening. I'm not even sure if Camerupt knows any rock moves, but even if they do, they never use them. Unfortunately, we still have to deal with the attack drops from Intimidate. In this fight, they even have two Mighty-Hyenas to use that ability. But at least the second one generally does not come out until the end of the fight, and so it is somewhat useless. Today this match went by quite fast, and so we can move on after a few extra turns. As a reward for helping him defeat the Team Magma, Steven gives us the Dive HM that we have to immediately use to reach the seafloor cave. Eventually we get to the bottom of it, and here we meet Archie. His team is more of the same really, Intimidate from Mightyena being a nuisance, but other than that not really that dangerous. Surprisingly enough, Crobat leaves an attack, mostly because of the attack drop, but instead of confusing me, he attacks me directly. Instead, it's Sharpedo who tries to do it, but it does not work out for him. Even though we won the fight, the legendary Pokémon gets awoken anyway from the red orb. Now that both of them are active, their abilities are clashing with each other and making the weather in the region a mess. To put an end to their fighting, we have to summon Rayquaza, and so we climb the tower and awaken him too. The third legendary of the trio quickly comes down from the sky and makes the other two stop fighting. Once we have rescued the planet, we can get back to the badge collection. The last gym leader in the region is Juan and his water types. For once we do not have the type advantage, but instead we are at a disadvantage. Things did not start great as I was spamming Fly, but that did not work. Then I tried to spam Ancient Power hoping for a boost, but that too did not really work, because once Kindra came out, I saw that Ancient Power did not do half of his HP. That is very bad, because it means that he can leave 2 attacks, and so he has plenty of time to restore his HP with rest. I switched to Return, and that move did the trick. I was even able to defeat the Whiscash in the first attempt with not that much HP left. A bit of a messy fight, mostly my fault, not going to lie. But at least we got through it in the first attempt. Now that we have acquired all of the badges in the region, we can also use all of the HMs, and thanks to that we can get into the Victory Road. Here we are challenged by Wally, and I lost to him once. I am not really equipped to deal with his Magneton. In the second attempt I tried to spam Ancient Power, which should not work, but a crit says otherwise. Once that Pokémon is defeated, the rest of the team is much easier to deal with. I can hit them for neutral with Return or Ancient Power, and so they are not really a threat. Sure, they might leave a few attacks because they are still decently bulky, but their damage output is not really that great, and so I should be able to survive pretty much anything. After defeating Wally and clearing the rest of the Victory Road, I made my way to the league, and after a little bit of setup, I got inside. Our first match is going to be against Sidney and his dark types. For this fight, Substitute is great. It can block a lot of status and stats lowering moves, but today Mightyena seemed to know that and went straight for the triple quadruple crunch. That worked great for him until I got a boost from Ancient Power. That is great, but considering the Intimidate, I am only back to normal attack. At this point I was a bit worried because I did not have a substitute, but instead of setting up another one, I tried to go on the offensive with Return and Fly. Things were a bit dodgy, especially with the double team strategies, but I was able to land all of my attacks and defeat the first Elite Four. For Phoebe, unfortunately, things did not go as well. In the first attempt, I ran out of PPs and then I lost the second one. As they say, third time is the charm, and so this is when I finally was able to defeat her. I did not do anything particularly different this time. I just tried to get a boost with Ancient Power, which did not really work that well, but at least since I had the Leppa Berry equipped, I had double the amount of attempts. Eventually I was able to get one, which is great since her Pokémons are not that frail. Her second Dusclops might be a problem because it knows some decent attacks, and of course Fly is not really that reliable of a move. It does not miss that many times in a row, and so I am able to defeat the Dusclops, but pretty much the same thing is going to happen later against Sableye, because that Pokémon loves to set up double team. Fortunately, this time that strategy does not work, and so I can finally make my way to the third Elite Four. I did lose once to Glacia, but that is not really a surprise. Her team, even though it is weak to rock, it is still very strong against me. The second attempt goes much better. I get an Omni Boost on the very first attack, and thanks to that, I can straight up sweep her team. Without the attack boost, I would have been chipped down by their attacks over the turns and finished off by Wall Rain, like in the first attempt. Moving on, we can now take on the fourth and last Elite Four. Drake might be a problem. His Pokémons are very tanky and can deal a lot of damage. Fortunately for me, I immediately get an Omni Boost again on the very first attack, and that is great. I even block the Intimidate from Salamence. Apparently, all of that is still not enough to one-shot his ace Pokémon. No bother, we ended up getting a second Ancient Power boost along the fight, and thanks to that I should now be more than capable enough of one-shotting his remaining Pokémons. Surprise, surprise, that was not the case. Flygon just barely leaves an attack, but since he did not paralyze me with the Dragon Breath, he is unable to do much and eventually falls a couple of turns later. At long last, we have to face the champion of the region, and no surprise, this was the hardest fight of the game. His team is very strong. I almost won in the second attempt, but I think I chose poorly. If I used Fly, I might have been able to defeat Whiscash. After a little while, I got to the successful attempt. In this one, things went a bit weird. First of all, I got an Omni Boost immediately, which is nice. But that was important because it allowed me to defeat the Wailord without taking any damage. I then used a substitute against Ludicolo, and that was extremely important because given the fact that my HP is so high, the trainer AI is going to try to use status moves on me, which will all be blocked by substitute. As you saw, Ludicolo was trying to use Leech Seed, Tentacruel is trying to use Toxic, and Milotic is going to do the same. That is super nice, because it allows me to freely attack them without having to worry about my HP. As you can see, I'm nowhere near strong enough to one-shot them, and so they surely would be able to defeat me with a couple of water attacks. Whiscash finally breaks the cycle, but that's a little bit too late. And so, that's how AERODACTYL became the champion of the Hoenn region. Most of the game was easy, but the league was hard. Between type matchups and my level being somewhat low, things were a bit of a challenge in the last stretch of the game. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe and all of that. If you have any comments with ideas, feedback, leave them down below. And I'll see you next week. Bye!